this evening. And I would say it's a coincidence, but I would say luck just fell on our side in the academy today, because our guest is speaking on a topic which was earlier treated in our last issue of the magazine, which is Scope Africa magazine. So I want to say a big welcome to each and every one of us. You're welcome to the academy, and I hope that you enjoy the class this evening with Mrs. Dolapo Oshiegbu. So right before we go into the section, I would like to introduce what the academy is all about to us, for some of us that are joining us for the first time, and also to remind those that are still that have been with us for a long period of time. And also I'll read the profile of our guest this evening. So without taking much ado, I would just like us to follow as I share the screen while I read out to us. So Scope Africa Academy is an initiative of Scope Africa. It's a platform that connects business professionals and entrepreneurs in Africa. It's a place where conversation around business, lifestyle, and intercontinental building are made. So it's a platform for, if you're a business professional, you're entrepreneurs, it's a platform for you to come on board to join us, and also to foster relationship, network, and other things, and also to build your business in one way or the other. So right this evening, we have Mrs. Dolapo Oshiegbu with us. She's a strategic business leader with over 12 years experience in manufacturing, supply chain with expertise in manufacturing excellence, best practice, process improvements, quality, health, safety, and environmental standards, operational efficiency and effectiveness. She's a chemical engineer graduate from the Federal University of Technology, Minna-Nigeria. She holds a postgraduate diploma in strategic management and leadership from United Kingdom, and she has numerous certificates to accredit. And she is a manufacturing excellence manager for Africa emerging markets. There you go. It's a privilege to have her in our midst today. We don't take it for granted having her here. We really appreciate your schedule, and you still make out time for us to teach us one or two things this evening. So without taking much of our time, I'll just let us start the section as soon as possible. So Mrs. Dolapo, you have the platform.
Thank you, Tomisi, and thank you to the Scope Africa team for inviting me. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you again to the Scope Africa team for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. So today, like Tomisi has earlier introduced, we'll be talking around the role of personal branding in the workplace. We'll get to a bit more of this, but before we start, I know Tomisi has done a bit of introduction, but I just want to tell you a bit more about myself. He's mentioned that I have about 12 years experience in manufacturing and supply chain. I'm a graduate of chemical engineering graduate from the Federal University of Technology, Minna. And I've got a couple of certificates under my belt. I have a diploma in strategic management and leadership from qualified in UK, as well as a diploma in brewing from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling in the UK as well. Currently running an MBA program in Anglia Ruskin University in the UK, and a couple of other certificates that I have taken, embarked done several roles in Diageo, and I'm currently working with the African emerging markets, where I support them in driving improvements to deliver on the overall business objective for those markets and for the business as a whole. I'm very passionate about excellence. I'm passionate about consistent delivery. I believe that we need to, it's not only about delivering on objectives, but you have to be consistent in delivering it over time. And Sustainable improvement is something I really go after, because I believe if you improve something, you don't want it to fall back. So you have to make sure that you put systems that allows it to stay the way you have set them to be. And genuinely, I have interest in people development. That's why when I got the invite to come for this, I was very happy to do it, because that is one of my passions. I'm married with kids, and one of the things that gives me joy is my personal understanding and knowledge of the supremacy of God. And in terms of drive, one of the things that I hold very closely to my heart is the fact that I believe that I can be the best form of myself in wherever I find myself. And in doing that, I make sure that I also, carry people along as much as possible. So that's a little about me. And we're going to be having a lot of conversations. We're going to be having to use the chat room so that I'm sure that people are following me. And because we are talking about the role of branding or personal branding in a workspace, I just wanted to ask, after reading my profile, do you think you got to know a little about me? Do you think you got to know the kind of, at least to a large extent, what is that first impression you think you have made after I've gone through a bit of myself? So if we can just use the chat room to just quickly tell me what you think. Haven't read my profile. What's your first impression? Because if we're talking about branding, impression is one of the first things that comes to mind. So I'll just give us a few seconds for people to drop that. And so, Mr. Please, you help me intermittently where people have questions or where people have raised certain comments or things that I need to know. Please draw my attention, because I'm sharing, I might not be able to see some of the chats immediately.
Noted, Mark.
Okay, thank you. All right. Whilst people are dropping their comments, I'm still waiting to see more comments.
Temitayo of Feni says you are a born leader.
Okay, thank you, Temitayo. That's good to hear. Forming an impression already from just reading the profile.
Okay, from Victoria Ofupuji says, focus driven, I see in you, top-notch standard.
Okay, all right, thanks, Victoria. So I guess why I asked that we do that quickly was just, we usually would not have a lot of time, okay, to explain who we are, to express who we are. We just have maybe a few seconds in most cases, and people already form an opinion or an impression about who the individual is. So that was just a little exercise to get us into the real conversations we're going to be having today. So people will form an impression whether they know you or not, whether they have had the opportunity to talk to you or not. So it's always important that at every point in time, we are conscious of what we are expressing. So let's go into a bit about branding. What exactly do we know, or what exactly do we think is branding? So please drop your comments as I go along, and I'll be checking it as I go in the presentation. So a lot of people over time have different perspective about what branding is. I know very many years ago, when you talk about branding, everybody thinks marketing. That's the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about branding. But today, we'll demystify it a bit more so that we then know how that applies to us. So here, I'm sure some of us, or if not all of us, are familiar with some of these brands that we see here. Anyone strikes anyone. So if you can pick one brand from this page that strikes you, and you can tell me one thing why you have chosen that particular brand, or why it caught your attention. I'll just allow for maybe one or two people to share their thoughts on any of the brands that struck them as soon as they saw this. Any volunteers? Okay, Tochukwu, please unmute yourself. I'm not sure I can hear Tochukwu speaking.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I'm trying to go through the brands. Good evening, everyone. I'm trying to go through the brands and trying to go through the brands and pick one that's very. I was looking for Mercedes. I can't find Mercedes here. But I'll probably say maybe Levi's. Levi's. Yeah.
And why did it catch your attention?
Yeah, Levi's. Yeah.
What is it about it that made you call that particular brand?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind once I see Levi's is quality, and not just quality, but quality that has endured for a very, very long time, as in a level of quality and a level of standard that has endured for a very long time. I mean, they basically introduced us to the jeans branch. You get, so they introduced it and all that. So it's a quality and a level and a standard that has stood the test of time for a very long time. So probably whenever I hear, I think of, I see Levi's, the first thing that strikes, as whenever I see their logo anywhere, the first thing that strikes is these guys have been at a very top level, and they've managed to keep that level for a very long time.
Yeah. Thank you, Toshiko. That's very impressive. So one thing that strikes is the fact that they've been there for a long time and the quality that they bring in. So that's something. I just want us to be taking note of some of those adjectives and things like that, because they will play up when we're talking about personal branding. Okay, I'll take one more and then I'll move on. So Simeon, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, good evening, all. Yeah, this is Simeon. Can you hear me? Hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So one of the brands that struck my attention was Sharp.
And why is that?
So I remember hello?
Go ahead, I can hear you now.
So when television was switching from the black and white to colored, I remember we had a Sharp television, and looking at where Sharp was after the 1980s and presently, it looks like over time the market swallowed them, and they were we presently hear about the Samsung, the Sony, the LG, and the rest. So they are no longer in vogue. So meaning sometimes branding can really tell a lot about products if you are not keeping pace with times. Thanks.
Thank you, Simeon. That's another very valid point you have called out. And that's, if you look at the two examples that we have heard now, Levi has been there since years and they've maintained that reputation. But for instance, you have spoken about Sharp, even though they're still in the market, but you cannot hear so much about them. So other newer brands have overtaken them. So thanks to those two contributors. For those will come up as we go along. I'll reference those points when we move along. So I'll just move on quickly. So really, like I said in the a few minutes ago, that branding for most people in the past was all about marketing. It was all about the logos. It was all about what do people see. Okay, but the truth is branding has gone beyond just that logo. just that icon that you see, and then you know that this is the brand. There are so many other things that makes up the brand. So there's a lot of things that qualify whether a brand is a good one, a bad brand, or it will be there over time, or it will stand the test of time. It's what are those things that the business does behind the scene to make that brand what it is. So you've got things around identity. What do we want to be identified for? What do we want to be identified with? Do we want to be identified as the quality brand? Do we want to be identified as the one that is affordable? So it depends on what you, as a business, you decide that this is what I want to be identified for. That's what I want to be identified with. There's a lot of awareness that needs to go on. It's not just about I'm a brand and then nobody knows anything about the brand. So it's not only about the logo. The logo can be nice. Yes, it can attract somebody, but it may not keep the person. So there's a lot of strategy that goes behind the scenes. You need people to trust the brand to deliver at all points. You know, you need loyalty. You also need to listen to the voice of the customer. What does the customer really want? Are you delivering to what the customer wants? And what's the general perception you want people to have? So branding is really very, very deliberate. It's not something that you would just say, because I have, this is my name, because my name is Dolapo, then that's it. No, it's a conscious effort to try and create an impression, to try and create a lasting impression that people would always remember you for. There's a popular saying that what will people, or people would normally say, what will people say about you when you're not there or when you're not looking? That is a brand. That is your brand. What people would say when you are not there behind you in a boardroom, or whether in your family or amongst your friends, when you're not physically there to defend yourself, is really the way they perceive you, is the brand that you have portrayed to them. So it is very, very important that whatever image that we're trying to create for ourselves, whatever image we are trying to create for the products that we sell, for the services that we render, we need to remember that it is how it lands on people. It is the perception that people have, that's the same way they will react to that particular brand. So it's not something you do today and you don't do tomorrow. It's something that needs to live over the years. Like Levi, the example about Levi, it's been there for many, many years. I'm sure it's probably up to 100 years, who knows? They have been consistent, and even till date, they still remain relevant. It didn't come by chance. It's a lot of deliberate actions, a lot of deliberate effort by different people to make sure that they keep that brand going, and then they remained identified with the quality that they started with from day one. So those are some of the elements that go into branding. Yeah, we might say branding, we're talking about goods, services. What happens when you're talking about yourself as an individual? So in the past, people used to think branding is only for corporate entities, is only for organizations. Individuals don't need branding, but that's not the case anymore. So I haven't talked a bit about general brands. Now let's go a bit into personal branding. Okay. So personal branding, if we just define it briefly, is a process of establishing a public persona for your target audience. So what do you want people to say about you? What do you want people to know you for? What do you want people to, how do you want people to perceive you? When you come in, what aura do people perceive? You know, it's how do you communicate your values, your beliefs, your goals, your purpose? Everything about you in a nutshell is personal branding. If you don't have the right brand, then you could just be giving people an impression that may not necessarily be true. But people would definitely form an impression based on what they think they know. So it is also very important that when you are talking about personal branding, you are passing the right message of what you want people to know about you, okay? Personal branding helps you to become knowable. People then know you. They get to understand what drives you. What are those values that you own? What's your goal? What's your purpose? People get to get a bit of that from you. And from knowing a bit about you, the higher the chance that then they start to like you. They start to be like, wow, I like this person. I like that person. I like the way this person does this. I like the way that person does that. And they try to get more familiar. They want to know more. And it then starts to, when they start to know you, they kind of like you, you start to build some level of trust, because, and that's how friendships also start. There are relationships that start as mere acquaintances. You just find yourself in the same space and it's good. But with time, as people get to know the person, the brand that you are, they are now like, hey, I think I can trust this person. I can work with this person. I can do business with this person. And that becomes your network. It then starts to grow. So whenever we talk about personal branding, some of the things that comes to mind is, how do you want people to perceive you? What do you want people to feel about you or to know about you? What values do you want people to know you stand for? If I flip back where I asked the question about when I introduced myself, I did that with the hope that I have been able to tell you, if you read that profile anywhere you find it, you could quickly distill out what are those things that form part of my value system. For instance, family is something that I put in there. Don't not elaborate, but I put it there intentionally because that's something I hold close to my heart. I put the elements on God because, yes, I don't wear the sleeve of religion, but I want people to know about me that I do reference God in everything that I do. So it was very deliberate. Everything I put there was a very deliberate attempt to share the things that matter to me, because I don't know if I'll meet some of the people on this call ever again, or if I'll get an opportunity to say, hey, that's not me, or to create an impression that is just suddenly formed. So it's important that you put the narrative to be what exactly you are, so that people don't get it twisted, they don't get it mixed up and things like that. So that was what I tried to do when I did that introduction, to say, this is what is important to me. And I put in there also, what is my purpose, so that people are clear. So when you see me doing this, you can kind of connect with it that, okay, yes, it's in line with one of the things that I hope to do for myself as an individual. And as I try to build myself, I also want to use the opportunity to build others in the course of the journey. So the other thing that we need to always consider during personal branding and trying to determine what we want to be known for is, we need to be dependable. We need to be reliable. It's consistency. You can't be good today, tomorrow you're bad. You can't deliver quality service today and tomorrow you just do anyhow. So things like that are not the impression you want to keep. You need to be dependent. People need to know that at any point, this person will always deliver. And then it starts to form the relationships that you keep, because they always say, birds of the same feathers will definitely flock together. So if myself and yourself don't share the same value, hey, the chances that we would relate would be slim. But if we do share the same value, there are higher chances that we'll connect a lot more, we can do much more together. I hope I'm not too fast and people are able to hear me. Just checking. Justin, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, all right, great. So we'll just continue, talk a bit more about building the personal brand. So in terms of personal brand, is also about, establishing and reinforcing who you are on a day-to-day basis, what you stand for. It's not only when you are at work and then when you are out of work, you're a totally different person. No, it works hand in hand. Where whatever you are at home, you have to be the same person outside at work. You have to be the same person in your gatherings, maybe other non-professional gatherings that you are. You need to be consistent. You need to stand for something, and you need to keep reinforcing that with the way and manner you relate from time to time. Personal branding, like I said, just like we talked about general branding when we're talking about goods and services and how companies go about branding. It takes a lot of time, it takes effort, it takes energy, it takes practice. It's not something that brands don't just become who they are or what they are overnight. It's over the periods that they get better, you get to understand yourself better, and then you improve on day-to-day basis. So personal branding is not, it's not a destination, if I can put it that way. It's a journey. So every day, there's always room to improve because maybe things, trends are changing, times are changing, focus is changing. You are doing something new. You want people to know that's what you're doing. So personal branding is dynamic. It will continue to change, but the values and the foundation of it doesn't really change because your value system doesn't change. It is whatever you value, you will continue to value. Okay, it's what matters to you that will continue to matter to you. Like I said earlier, in the days past, people felt personal branding. You would hear celebrities talk about, I have an image maker, or I have, what do they call them now? People that kind of manage their brand builders. That's what they call them now. So you have a celebrity says, I have my brand builders who are working to, establish this persona. They want people to know and things like that. That's celebrities, but the truth is personal branding is for every individual, regardless of whether you own a big business or you're just a kiosk or you just work in your home and you deliver your services from your own. Personal branding is for everybody. And if we have not started to determine what brand we are, I would ask that today should be that turning point, because whether we like it or not, the moment that we were born into this world, as an individual, you are a personal brand. So it is how well you then work towards making that brand become knowable, likable, unforgettable and things like that. That's what makes the difference. So, and when you talk about for people that work in a corporate organization, or even where you work in the midst of others that do the same thing that you do, that personal brand you've got is what starts to differentiate you. Because you could have a lot of people, we have photographers, everybody can be a photographer. But the difference between the professional photographers and the roadside photographer is the brand that they have built around themselves, is the image that they have created, that, hey, I'm a celebrity photographer, for crying out loud. That is just an image he wants you to believe. So anybody could actually photograph a celebrity, not necessarily that there has to be some special people, but it's all about what brand are you building for yourself. So, and that is the differentiation, whether we like it or not, between people that ultimately get it to the top and those who also don't grow. It's all about what brand have you built for yourself in your organization? What brand have you built for yourself in your business? What image have you created to make people want to do business with you? Okay, so I'll move on. We'll get time to ask questions. I just want to quickly run through this as much as possible. So why is personal branding now important, really, okay, in the workplace? Like I mentioned, everybody, we all join the organization or we start a business together. What will keep you going, okay, is your personal brand. It becomes your competitive advantage. It becomes that that benefit or that advantage you have over the next person. Because whether we like it or not, if you work in a corporate organization, you will know that this pyramid that we usually would see, at the base, there's a lot of space for everyone. But as it goes up, it starts to narrow out. It starts to reduce. The spaces become limited. It's not as large as it's were when we were all at the start of our careers. So the difference between the guy who makes it to become the GM or who makes it to become the MD is some of the things, the branding he has grown for himself. That is his competitive advantage over the rest of the folks that could have been at that position as well. So even when you do assessment centers or where you go for interviews, the thing that strikes the interviewer is that competitive advantage you have over the rest of whoever has joined. There's usually that thing that people see in this person and they're just like, this is the guy I want to work with. So that is the competitive advantage. That is what personal branding does for each individual. It gives you that edge. It gives you that, that opportunity that people may not, your colleagues may not have. And when you start to, brand yourself, and then you start to receive the benefits of branding yourself, you are gaining voice. There's that level of confidence that starts to come in, because now you're sure, you become more sure of yourself, because when you speak, people listen. When you talk, people want to hear what you have to say. Even when you are not talking, people are asking you, what do you think? So it starts to allow you to gain confidence. Then you are now able to even become more expressive. You are now able to then show who you are, showcase what you've got over time. So there is a lot of advantage that comes with you understanding what your personal brand is, who you want people to see you as. It goes a very long way within an organization, okay? The other thing that it sort of does for you is, as you start to grow that, as people start to know you, as people start to understand your brand, you start to network a lot more. The contacts you didn't have before, you suddenly start to have them. Because people are referencing you over and over again, people now know that if you need something, hey, Dolapo is the person, Tomisi is the person, this is the person you need to speak to. So you now start to build your networks. It takes you to heights that you don't even imagine. Places that you would not assume that ordinarily you will get an opportunity to be in, you will start to get such opportunities, okay? So it is very, very important that we stick with the brands that we have created for ourselves. If you don't create that right impression, people would not know you. People would not be able to connect with you. They can't know what is your value, what exactly makes this person think. They don't even know what your personality is. It doesn't work that way. So, but when people are able to understand that brand that you have built for yourself, then it becomes easy for them to say, this is the person. If you need this is the person. If they want somebody that will deliver on time, your name will just pop up. If they want someone that, hey, you can go to bed, you don't need to worry, everything, as in even the tiny little details, will be ticked off, then they know the person. So that's how those impressions are formed. And then before you know it, your name is everywhere. People kind of like, okay, I want to be associated with this person. So that's what personal brand does for you within the organization. And even outside of a structured organization, is still the same thing. If you look at people, the catering business or even hospitality business, it works on referrals. If those guys have not created a personal brand or an image that they want people to believe that is how they behave and that is what they will always get, nobody's going to reference them in the future. Nobody is going to say, I can recommend this person to you. So it's very, very important that we understand that networking is also a function of the personal brands that we build. Another thing that it does for us is your net worth. So when I talk about net worth here, I'm not talking about financial. Yes, financial may come in along the way, but it's not necessarily about the financial gains. It's about the reputation, the prestige that comes with being the go-to person. There's that feeling that you cannot quantify in terms of naira and kobo in any currency that you want to look at it. It's that feeling of when people when they need solution, they know you are the person. You can't quantify that, because one day it will eventually bring you financial benefits, but it goes beyond that. Is the value that people have attached to you. It's the responsibility that comes along with it. So it becomes you can even say you're a celebrity in your own way, because people just know you for good. When they want something, they know that this is the person. You can never pay for that. The reputation that comes with being a brand that is reputable, that can be dependable, you can't value that in Naira and Kobo. So that's some of the benefits. There are so many benefits. If we talk on branding and what it can do for you in an organization, it's numerous. And whether you are in a formal organization or you're just in a business of your own, branding can do so much for you if you get the brand right. If you are able to define your image and you are able to define what you stand for, it would take you to places that you can't even imagine. So those are some of the things I think we tend to gain once you get the right brand and you are able to express yourself appropriately. Like I mentioned when I talked about my profile earlier that there are times you never really get an opportunity to change an impression that has been formed. Like I said, some people I may know, some people I may not know, and some people I may talk to again after this session, some people I may not talk to after this session, but hey, opinions will be formed. So if I'm not able to express this is who I am, or try to create that impression for you to know this is the little you can know about me within the short period of time we spend together, the chances that I will get an opportunity to create it. Some people are very lucky, they might get an opportunity to correct a wrong impression, and say, that's not what I meant, that's not how it is, I think. But in most cases, you don't know the number of people that were, if something breaks out, if an impression is formed right now, you don't know how many people were there at that point in time. So how many people do you know you're going to get back to? Maybe one or two people. You may end up coming across them and they tell you that, hey, what happened there? And then you're able to correct it. But what of the million others that you did not get to catch who they were? And then they're out and they form their impression. Hey, so that's why at every point in time, your personal brand has to be who you want people to know you as, and it has to be the way you are all the time. And that, if you remember, I mentioned earlier that your personal brand cannot be me at work, I'm like this. Then when I'm in my church, hey, I'm like this. When I'm in the mosque, I behave like this. Or when I'm with my friends, I'm this sort of person. It's not going to work, because otherwise you are creating different impressions of yourself. And who says the person you meet in the church will not end up in the workplace? And who says the person you know in the office will not end up in your social group that is outside of work? And then they're like, hey, what happened here? This person is not like this at work, and things like that. So your brand has to be consistent across board. You cannot be one way this time and then another way another time. So those are some of the reasons why I say personal branding in the workplace, you can't pay for it in Naira and Kobo. Okay, so we have spoken a whole lot around branding, what it is not. I think now I want us to go a bit into, and then I'll go into question and answer very soon. But so where do one begin all of this? Because for some people, we probably have known about branding for a while. We probably have known about, yes, personal branding, but a few people may not even have considered it as, I've not even thought of myself as a brand at all. I'm just myself. I just go to work. I just do my things. If you're that kind of person and you haven't, and even if you already had, this is who I am, this is you've defined who you are, you kind of have an idea. It's always good to reassess from time to time to say, okay, take a step backwards and say, am I still on track? So the first thing that I always advise people who want to create a personal brand for themselves is you need to conduct a self-assessment for yourself. And the first stage of this is you need to know yourself as an individual first, because people would have ideas of what they think about you, and that can change if you're not sure of yourself. But if you know yourself, if you're able to sit yourself down and say, hey, what exactly drives me? What exactly am I after? Because sometimes the reason why we feel that we are not where we want to be is probably because we don't even know where we're going. We don't even know the reason why we are doing what we are doing. Okay, so the first thing to do is just sit back. You know, this is what they call sober reflections. Think about it. What exactly drives me? Okay, why am I on this earth? What exactly am I looking for? What do I want to achieve? What are those things that mean the world to me? Okay, so you need to be very, very clear about that, because everything you do is then built on that, because it's built on the foundation of your purpose, it's built on the foundation of your values, of what drives you. And if you have missed it, it's just like building a house. If the foundation is wrong, at some point, everything will come crumbling. Like I said, for me, one of the things that is my motto is that I'll be the best. Wherever I find myself, I would be the best at it. So I put in all the work to be the best at it. And I know that if I want to be the best, I drive my energy from people around me as well. So if I'm the best and everybody around me is not equally as good, or they're not pulling the weight, then there's a high chance that I'm not going to do well. So that's why for me, as I move on, I make sure that people that are with me, I'm also sharing the knowledge, I'm doing everything possible so that they would be the people that will also help me to get to where I'm going to. So those are the things that at the back of my mind, no matter what I do, it is constantly there. Whether it's in my family, whether it's at work, I know that I have to always be that, I'm that center that pulls others along. So everything I do is based on that. So if you are able to know yourself and you know what drives you, what your purpose is, then it becomes easier for you to be able to, move to the next stage. So once you have done that assessment, you can write it down. It's very good. I always tell people, write some of these things down so that you can take stock. And when things, as you're moving on, you can then make references. So please, when you're doing this exercise, put it down. It's far better than just imagining it in your head, and tomorrow you're not even sure what you thought about last night. So please put it down. Then you take personal stock. So what are those things that I'm very good at? What are those strengths that I have? What are those things that work for me ordinarily? I don't need to put any effort, but I know that this works for me. Am I self-driven? Am I somebody that even if I have a photogenic memory, there are so many things, can be anything at all. Just take it down, know what you have, because that's like your what did finance people call it? Your credit and loss, your balance sheet. You are trying to know what you have, what you don't have. What I've put there is even better is I don't want to call it areas that you're not good at. So if I were better at this, okay, maybe it would have been my strength. So you can have those areas of opportunity as well. You need to know what they are, because it will form some of the things that you may need to work on if you must create your personal brand. These exercises are very important. If you don't know yourself, it is also difficult, because when we move to the stage 3, which is then you get feedback from other people, you may just scrap who you are because of what people say. So step 1 and 2 are very, very critical to be done so that you have a strength, like a strong sense of who you are before you start to seek feedback from other people. But once you start to seek feedback, feedback is meant to be constructive. Hopefully you get constructive feedback, and it's not meant to be all absorbed. Feedbacks are, you take some, you throw some out because it doesn't add up to the journey you're embarking on. it doesn't work for you as an individual because that's not who you are. Or maybe it could have that feedback could have come based on a one-off circumstance, which maybe the person did not know, or things like that. So seeking feedback is the next stage, because you also, it's one thing to know yourself, it's another thing to understand how people perceive you or what people think about you. Okay. Then the last stage of this is, now that you know all of this information, you know you've done a self-assessment, you've heard what people think about you, you kind of have a clearer position. You now have to now say, what exactly is the gap between this person I am right now and that destination I want to be? So for instance, if I sit down, I'm like, I want to be the GM of my company in the next few years. That's a very tall order. Well, it's not impossible. So I need to go back, look at what are those things I have. Dolapo, I know that you're strong. No matter the weather, I will always survive. So that's the strength. Because if I'm MD, for crying out loud, the problems of the world will be mine all of a sudden. Everything that is running an organization will suddenly be your problem. So you need that inner strength. So yes, check, I have that. I need to know finance. I don't know anything about finance. Okay, that's a gap. Then I need to work on it. Once you start to, do all of those, it may seem very academic, but I can tell you that if you don't do it, it becomes very, very difficult for you to then know what your brand is and how you are going to push it and what will be the areas of development. So when you now look at those gaps you've got to where you're going to, inform some of those things that you then need to start working on to create that persona you want to be. So these are some basic steps that I will always advise people that at any point in time, it's like taking stock. You do a stock count, you do at the end of the year, people say we do New Year resolution. These are exercises that you should do from time to time so that you know whether you are in the space of where you want to be or you need to course correct. So we'll talk a bit more if people have questions. This is going to be my last slide before I take questions. So from here, people are getting confused. Maybe people are worried already that, hey, there's a lot of work to do. It takes practice, like I said before. Building a brand, the likes of, someone mentioned Mercedes when we started. Mercedes didn't become Mercedes overnight. Mercedes gained its name with a lot of strategy, a lot of people sitting down behind the drawing board and saying, what kind of brand do we want to build with Mercedes? They said it's Mercedes, Benz, and all others. So for it to, if that is the ideology and that's the brand that they wanted to build, they needed to sit down to say, okay, so what edge do we have to have that every other person would not have? They knew they had to be classy. They knew that, hey, this car is not going to be for the average. It's going to be premium. It's going to, so they started to, create that persona they want the Mercedes to be. And it's the same thing for an individual. If you look at, even if we take celebrities, let's talk about, let me pick someone that everybody will probably know, Moabudu. Moabudu started as, I just want to be in the entertainment world. I want to create movies. I want people to watch my movies. I want them to be blockbusters. She just had this big idea. But hey, for her to do that, she knows that it couldn't be average. It had to be off the charts. So in doing that, she went for the best actors. She went for the best financiers. She went for people who could, pay for that vision that she had. If she didn't do that and she just sat down there and was like, hey, I want to produce blockbusters, she will probably still be on the drawing board right now because she would have gone back. She did the first one, nobody watched it. She'll have to go back. But that's why I said branding, personal branding requires a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of practice. It's not the same way organizations do it, is what you have to do for yourself as an individual. So starting now, one of the first things I would advise is you need to start building content. What do I mean by building content? You need to know your onion. people will not talk to you if they know you know nothing. You can't have that kind of, you need to be good in whatever you're doing right now. So if, for instance, I work in the supply chain, I need to know everything about supply chain. I need to know modern day supply chain. I need to know what happened in the past. I need to, you need to read about supply chain in manufacturing, supply chain in banking, supply chain in, different aspects of things. You need to build that content. You also need to, learn outside of your scope. Sometimes we stay in our area and then we don't, go to other areas. And then that's why if we're in conversations, they flip conversations, we get lost. So every day you need to build more content. You need to know what's happening. You need to read about everything. You need to be able to hold conversations because that's what will keep you. You cannot build a brand. People now know you and then tomorrow they're talking about something. Because you don't have the conversation, you disappear. You're not going to work. So you need to keep building yourself from time to time. The clearly defined personality. So you cannot be this person today, like I said, and be somebody else tomorrow. Everybody must know that, this is who you are. This is what you believe in. Like I said, values don't change. That if family is at the bottom of what you do, everybody that works around you, everybody knows that, when it comes to Dolapo, she will always consider her family first. That part, a lot of people know that no matter the decision I make, my family will be first. When my family is fine, then I can start to think about any other thing that adds on to it. But without that, forget every other thing, nothing will happen. So you need to be very, very defined. Nobody, they can't say this is this person today and then tomorrow, because you have made a decision that contradicts that one, then they are like, who is this person really? You can't have that kind of person. So your personality has to be defined. Appearance is something that I know it's a dicey topic. When people talk about appearance, people think you have to be all glamorous, you have to be all expensive looking and all of that. Not necessarily. For me, what is appearance? Appearance is the gestures, mannerism, the subtle things that people overlook. It's, yes, what you wear and how you appear would probably decide. People will even make a judgment about you. Once they see you, they're like, hey, this one, because of the way the person is dressed, is probably not, you understand? So appearance could be also the way you look in terms of outfits, in terms of, you have to dress appropriately, for crying out loud. When I first joined Minna-Nigeria at the time, as much as I loved heels, as much as I loved dresses, sorry, it was not appropriate. I started as a technician or a technologist. I needed to go to packaging halls. I can't wear gowns and all of those flowery dresses up and down. I had to wear jeans. For the better part of so many years, I wore jeans almost every day, because that was what meant that if I needed to hop over something, I was ready to do it. People knew that they could take me anywhere, any corner, I would get there. If they knew that, okay, she was going to be too dressed, she cannot lift her feet, they start to, remove you from certain things. So dress the part, look the part, and be sure that etiquette is very, very important. People overlook it, but even the way you speak, when you're in the midst of people, people form an opinion. So it's very important that appearance is not just about the outlook, it's about your mannerisms, about your gestures, it's about things that you even don't consider as important. Self-development, I cannot overemphasize, because like I said, every day we need to, we may have even done personal branding before, but it's always important that we take stock part time and see where the gaps are and continue to develop, learn new things every day. The last thing is emotional intelligence. This bit is a topic on its own, I think it's a course on its own. But what I don't want people to take away from emotional intelligence is to think that emotional intelligence is high service. It's far from it. It is not high service. It is not favoritism, my brother or my sister or my tribe's person or anything. It's none of those things. Please take it away from it. Emotional intelligence is being able to assess a situation appropriately and take the right decision based on the situation that is at hand. Okay, it is about, what do I need to do to get, for instance, if I work for a boss, emotional intelligence is, what do I need to do for my boss to succeed? Remember, if my boss succeeds and he knows I'm the one that helps him to succeed, hey, if he succeeds, then I succeed. So that is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is putting yourself in the space of somebody else to say, hey, if I were in this guy's shoe, what would I be looking for? What would I do? So those are basic things that I think right now, if you don't want to even start the assessments, start to work on some of these things before you start to understand what, take more time to get your purpose, get your drives, get your values and things together, but start to build yourself in some of these areas. They will go a long way in defining who you are and then defining how you show up in your organization. So I'll stop there. I know I've spoken a whole lot and tried to explain as fast as I could. And I'll just like to take questions, contribution for the next couple of minutes. So Tommy say I'll try to pick the ones I can as well. So that's a brief. I know the time is short, but I've tried to put it in the best possible context for everyone to kind of pick one thing or the other that they can take away from this session. So I'll open the floor for questions, comments.
Thank you so much, Ma. I think, okay, let's make it a two-way option. If you have any question, kindly do that by raise of hand, or you type it in the chat box so we can know. If you have any comments also, you can drop it in the chat box, or you raise your hand so that you can be called to speak. Thank you. So while we are waiting for them to do that, there is a comment or appreciation. It says, well done, Dolapo. It only takes a few seconds to make an impression or perception about oneself. So it is best to make the most of every opportunity. This is coming from Minna-Nigeria. That's saying that to you, ma.
Thanks so much. So do we have any other question?
Okay, I'm getting a comments from the chat box saying whether Dolapo powerful key points on personal branding. That's from Jumoke Adedeji.
Thank you, Jumoke.
So one more time, I would like to ask if there's any other question. If there's any question in the house, if you need clarification. Okay, now we have a question here coming from Yemi Oyeleye. Right before that, John Fatomi said, very loaded class. Thank you, Dolapo. So down to the question. He said, how can we change a wrong impression? From Yemi Oyeleye.
Okay, thank you, Yemi. So, for how do we change wrong impressions? It takes about double. Let me just say double the process of forming the right impression. When an impression has been formed and it's probably not the impression you want, one of the key things is you need to understand what led to that wrong impression. Because if you don't know what led to that wrong impression, you're probably not going to be able to correct it. So you need to understand what led to this impression in the first instance, because for you, it may not have even been something that could have led to a wrong impression. You may just have been yourself, but it has been perceived wrongly. Sometimes we could make a comment. The comment was not intended, for instance, to offend anyone. It was just, you were just being yourself, but someone has taken it wrongly, and then it has formed an impression that is not right. So the first thing is to first understand what is the basis of this impression that has been formed. If it is something that was not intended, then it is easier to say, hey, and meet whoever is in question to say, this was not the intent. This is what was meant. This is what was it. And it's very, that is dialogue. Have the conversation. Where you're unable to probably maybe on a one-on-one have that dialogue, because when you know where it's coming from, it's very easy for you to go right there and correct it. In a situation where it is wrong, the only way to correct it is all this process we have talked about. What is that right impression? Create that right impression, do that right thing, and let people know that, hey, we may have made a mistake about this person. So there are two, it's like a two-way street. It's one leg would be walk up to whoever, or if you know where the impression is coming from, you understand what it is, you can correct it by just having a dialogue, and then that goes away and everybody kind of understands each other and be like, oh, sorry, I thought it was this or I thought it was that. But where that opportunity does not exist, the only way to create a wrong impression is by righting the wrong. So making sure that all of these things we have talked about, you start to live it. With time, people start to be like, hey, the thing we thought about this person may not have been right. Then they start to give you that benefit of doubt. Then they start to try to know you and walk through some of these conversations that we have had previously. And then you are able to then right that wrong impression. So I hope I have helped in answering that question.
Okay, so we have other questions coming in, and there's one from Victoria. She says, how do one manage some impediments or limitations towards building one's personal brand?
Okay, so you need to, when I said that you need to do the self-assessment, there are certain things that we don't all have the same strengths. What may be your strength may not be my strength. Some people would say, let me use a very common example. Some people will always say I'm an introvert. So my personality, because I'm an introvert, naturally, I'm not the kind of person that would open up and talk, or, I would not be vocal about certain things. That in itself, being an introvert in itself could be a strength, but you need to understand what is in that strength of being an introvert. So certain things that we see as limitations may not necessarily be limitations. It's because we have not sat down to see what is the strength in this limitation. If I'm an introvert, it means that I might be an observer. It might mean that for me, I would stay back, observe, but it doesn't mean that after observing, I keep all the information to myself. Then it's of no use. Then in that way, you need to train yourself to be like, okay, I haven't thought of these things. I need to then say something. I may not be able to say it as a large forum. I would have to start with, okay, maybe it's a one-on-one conversation, or maybe it's in a smaller circle. So some of these things that we see as impediments, or we assume that are impediments, may not necessarily be impediments. It's just because we have not found the strength in them to then determine how do we then approach it. So that's why I didn't put them as limitations or impediment when I talked about strengths and even better ifs. So I prefer to call it even better, because I don't want to say it is not a good attribute or something. It's not a limitation. It's just that you need to find what works for that even better if that. So if I now know that, yes, I'm an introvert, I cannot speak out in the open, but I can reason it and then have that conversation in a smaller team, or have it directly with my line manager, who, knowing that I'm an introvert, then helps me to propagate that. Did you know? You can be in a meeting and the person is like, did you know that Dolapo thought that this is the idea that she brought, and things like that. And then it changes from a conversation of two aside, it becomes a public knowledge. People then know, and we're like, wow, so this person has this sort of strength. But it's about understanding your limitations and then looking for ways to make it right or make it better off than take it as a limitation. So I would tell us to avoid seeing things that may not be strengths as limitations, but see what is the strength or what's the opportunity that you can then project from those limitations.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So by the way, if you don't mind, can you stop sharing? Or are you using the slides? Okay.
No, I'll stop. Okay. Yeah.
So we have another question here. I'm trying to find this. Okay. From IDG, it says, good evening, ma'am. My question goes first. can I leverage on being accountable to a mentor in trying to build my personal PR business brand?
Yes, definitely. Mentors, coaches, there are people that you can always at every point in time leverage on. So when you have a mentor, there's what people don't understand is there's a difference between a mentor and a coach. A mentor usually is someone who has passed through that same journey. So if I'm in the supply chain, for instance, and I want to mentor someone else in the supply chain, it means that I've gone through that journey and I can tell you, this is how I did it, this is how I did it, this is how I did it. So the person can then choose to pattern their ways after mine. So that's a mentor relationship. So it's possible, yes, if your mentor has gone through that route before, it becomes easier for the mentor to then say, hey, if you're going in this, if this is the business you want to do, then these are the steps you will take. So it becomes easier and faster. However, if it is a coach you have, it's fine. The person may never have been in that field. A coach is someone that, stirs up thoughts in your mind. They probably haven't done the work you have done. They probably haven't experienced it before. But coaches can also help you. They are good at, digging out things that you never thought were there. So they ask the right questions. They challenge you in ways that you probably haven't thought of. So whether it's a coach you've got, whether it's a mentor, they are very, very helpful in directing you, in creating your brand, in creating the person that you want to be. And they always would help a lot when you are defining at the early stage, when you're trying to define what is your vision, what is your purpose, what are those things that drive you, or what, even if it is for your business that they are doing that, it always helps to have a mentor that will guide you along that path. So I always subscribe to mentors, coaches at every point in time. Even the biggest of the biggest people in the industries still have some of those as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So I think the last question of the day, it says from Tai Galazi 8, it says, is it okay to sample people's opinion about oneself without coming as lacking in self-confidence?
So I mentioned something about seeking feedback. When you seek feedback, like I said, before you seek feedback, it's always very good to have a good understanding of yourself. If you have a good understanding of what your strengths are, what drives you, what your values are, when you get feedbacks, it's easy for you to filter out which one works for you and which one is not meant for you. Not all feedbacks are meant for us to absorb. There are some that, okay, you can take one or two insights from, and then you translate it into what works for you and what would not go against your values. Somebody else's value may be different from yours. So if the person is giving you the feedback based on his own personal values, it won't be right for you to absorb that, because automatically you're changing who you are. So maintain who you are, but take the insights from what the person is trying to portray without stripping away yourself or stripping yourself of who you are and then trying to be somebody else. So please, when you receive feedback, I would say that if you don't, please always receive feedback. It goes a long way for you to, substantiate your values, for you to test yourself, and for you to even know what people think about you. So I will always subscribe to feedback, but please, when you take those feedback, make sure that you have also done your self-evaluation so that you are able to then marry the two together so that you don't lose yourself in all of this branding, because it's also very, very easy. I can say it is very, very easy to lose yourself totally in all of this, because you can end up being somebody different. So we need to be careful as we do. There's no extreme in these situations.
Okay. So there are two appraisals here. One from Simeon. It's a great talk about self-assessment to define purpose, value, and drive. Then from Uwoji, she says, thanks, Dolapo. Learns a lot. Then finally, luckily this person was able to send a question in. It says that that's from Babatunde Ojo. It says, are there any material you recommend regards personal branding topics and emotional intelligence?
Okay, so thank God the internet is it's very accessible. There are so many books. There are a lot of ebooks on personal branding, on emotional intelligence. LinkedIn has got free courses on these topics as well. So they are readily available on the net. So please, for those people who are on LinkedIn, search on LinkedIn for materials on emotional intelligence. They have very lovely videos where they are not very long, so there are things that you can cover in very few hours. That's if it's even up to an hour in some cases. So you've got ebooks that are free, that you can easily go through. So those materials are there. Harvard Business School has this, what do they call them? They have this series that they do. You would always find topics around personal branding. You'll find topics around emotional intelligence. You'll find loads of different topics from Harvard Business School. Any of these business schools usually would have all of those materials online as well that you can read from time to time. So please spend a lot of time going through business schools, LinkedIn, and e-books, any e-book readers. You would always get insights from it. It's Harvard Business Reviews. Very helpful. I love to read them. Different topics. It's good to subscribe to that. So they just send it to you on routine basis, and they are very, very interesting. So I'll ask everyone to please try to subscribe to those.
Thank you so much, Ma. Kingsley Oyibo is saying, thanks, Madam. Great presentation, very insightful and inspiring. And Babatunde Ojo is saying, thank you for the question answered. It was one who asked for the recommendation of books that might be able to help on emotional intelligence. So it's been a great time this evening at the Academy. Once again, we are happy to have everyone here. We are glad that you are here to learn about one thing or the other. And like Jeff Boss said, he says that personal branding is what people say when you are not in the room. So it is what people are talking about, even when you are not there. Just like she has mentioned today, like today now we have heard about her. Now we will still have to talk about her later on. And whatever we perceive about her now is what we will tell others. That, okay, this person that spoke at the academy is like this, is like that. Is like, we love to have her. No, yes, and like means like that, and that is how it works. So while you were speaking, something came to my mind, and I was like, okay, probably I'm going to confirm from this before we call it a day on the section. I wrote down here that, okay, it's just like a spontaneous thoughts. It says your personal branding or personality is developed with the value you dish per time. So I would like to confirm if I'm correct.
Yes. So your brand is whatever. What I don't want us to mix is their values. You have a value system. Okay. Yeah. So that value system is different from value that you exude per time. So for whatever you attach value to, yes, you would always, that's what your brand will show off at every given time. So if I value this thing, if I value my time, you would see it in my personality, you see it in my personal brands, you will be able to, decipher that from me. Tends to show in your personal brand.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. Because I was like, okay, let me confirm before I just take it and run off with it without getting more clarification. So it's been an amazing time, and really appreciate you once again. And we'd love to also have you more, maybe at other times when we call on you to grace our platform once again. Also, to everyone that was this evening, we are also like you to also join us at the Academy. Once in a month, we have this Zoom platform, we have a WhatsApp platform, and you can always reach out to the numbers in your email for further details. And also, for those of us that are joining that we don't know about the magazines, You can actually, I'm going to drop the link. You can catch up with the magazine that was dropped. We talk about personal branding, the latest edition of Cisco Africa magazine. Then also, if you still want to watch this section later on, by probably weekend, or let's say during the week, it's going to be on our YouTube channel. I'm going to drop the link of our YouTube channel. It is Cityscope Africa. So you can check out, you see other classes that have been done so far from last year, AFPEC, which is a annual conference. So you can check it out, begin to watch and begin to learn from these different speakers. So I want to say a big thank you to each and every one of us for making our time this evening, even despite the fact that, okay, we've been in hustle and bustle. Some of us want to rest, some of us is weekend, but we still make our time this evening to come and learn a thing or two. We say a big thank you. I would hope that you learned something tonight and you're able to take it and run with it. Personal branding, it is who you are and what you want people to know about you, not what people think about you, but what you want them to know. So you have to be, like I want to add to it now, you have to be conscious about it. That fact that, okay, yes, this is what I want people to know me for. You have to carry that consciousness so you don't let them take what you don't want them to take from you. So thank you once again. I've just dropped the link of the YouTube channel to us. I don't know, Dolapo, would you like to tell us about your channel if they want them to follow you or to they want to know data for you on social media?
Okay, for LinkedIn, you find my name as Dolapo Oshiegbu on LinkedIn. For all the other platforms, I think for Facebook, it's the same thing. For Instagram, you see me as Dolly Ossi, Dolly as D-O-L-L-Y, then O-S-S-Y on Instagram, and the same thing on Twitter. The only difference between my Instagram and Twitter is in between the Dolly and Ossi, there is an underscore, so it's Dolly_ Ossi for Twitter, or Dolly Ossi on Instagram. Love to for people to follow, and then you can see a little more about me, and I can get to know a little more about others as well. So thank you again, Cityscope Africa team, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Thank you. So also, we are also on all platforms. Cityscope Africa is on all platforms, social media. Just type Cityscope Africa, is going to pop up. Then also we are on YouTube. Then the Academy is on LinkedIn. We have a page on LinkedIn, so you can also follow the page to get updates on what is going on. Although we'll be getting email notification about classes that are coming up. So you can just do well to check it and learn one thing or the other. So thank you so much for this evening. Thank you, everyone. I wish us a great evening and a good night rest. Thank you and have a great day.